Jackson threw a thick stack of papers onto the dining room table shortly after midnight. "Sign here, here, and here," he barked, tapping each page impatiently. His voice was ice cold, as if speaking to a stranger, not Claire, his wife of 12 years. Claire looked up at him calmly, his hair messy, eyes bloodshot, and an unmistakable trace of unfamiliar perfume lingering on his jacket. "Now, Claire," Jackson snapped irritably, thrusting a pen toward her. "I don't have all night." The dining room, once warm and inviting, felt cold and clinical, more like an interrogation room than the cozy heart of their suburban Austin home. "You get nothing," he continued with a cruel smirk. "No alimony, no house. You leave with exactly what you brought into this marriage." Claire took the pen without protest, calmly signing each page. Jackson watched closely, clearly expecting a reaction. Tears, anger, a desperate plea, but her quiet acceptance seemed to unsettle him. What he didn't know was that Claire had been meticulously preparing for this exact moment, for months. She'd noticed everything: late-night texts, changed passwords, unexplained trips, but it was a subtle lipstick mark on his shirt collar last April that confirmed her suspicions. That night, she called her best friend Natalie, a financial advisor, and Ethan Parker, Austin's sharpest divorce attorney. "You're making this too easy," Jackson remarked, gathering the signed documents with satisfaction. "I expected a fight." Claire smiled calmly, thinking about the proof carefully stored away in a safety deposit box. Months of meticulous documentation that Jackson knew nothing about. "Why fight?" she asked evenly. "You already made your choice clear." He hesitated, clearly thrown off by her steady demeanor. "Sophia's different," he muttered defensively. "She's ambitious, not stuck teaching third-graders forever." Claire thought briefly of her beloved students, the careful investments she'd quietly made, and the secure future she'd mapped out over the past several months. "Well, I hope she's exactly what you wanted." Ignoring Claire's subtle confidence, Jackson slid the documents into his briefcase, already pulling out his phone, likely texting Sophia about their supposed victory. "Don't do anything stupid, Claire," he warned sharply as he walked toward the door. "Jackson?" she called softly. He stopped, turning around irritably. "What?" "You might want to carefully read what you just had me sign." He scoffed, irritation crossing his face. "I know exactly what's in them. I wrote them myself." "Did you?" Claire asked calmly, tilting her head slightly. "Or did your golf buddy Patrick write them?" Jackson's face darkened immediately. "How did you?" "Good night, Jackson," she said, turning her back to make tea. Moments later, she heard the front door slam shut. Claire leaned against the countertop, exhaling slowly, feeling peace wash over her. Jackson thought he'd outsmarted her, but he'd never suspected her quiet retaliation. His so-called legal expert Patrick had made glaring errors. Ethan had spotted them immediately. Those divorce papers Jackson forced on Claire weren't divorce papers at all. She quickly texted Natalie. "It's done," he took the bait. Then to Ethan. "Phase 2 starts now." By morning, Jackson would discover he'd unknowingly signed documents transferring all their joint assets solely into Claire's name, alongside a sworn statement admitting his infidelity and financial misconduct. The first frantic call arrived just before 7 a.m. Claire watched Jackson's name flash repeatedly across her phone while sipping coffee quietly on the porch. 4 calls, then a flood of increasingly desperate text messages followed. "What did you do? These aren't right. Answer me." With quiet satisfaction, Claire placed her phone aside, gazing at the sunrise, imagining Jackson's realization unfolding painfully. Natalie arrived promptly at 8 a.m., laptop in hand. "How are you doing?" she asked, eyes twinkling at the flood of messages visible on Claire's phone. "Better than Jackson, I'm guessing," Claire said calmly, holding up the screen filled with panicked texts. Natalie chuckled softly. He already called Ethan's office, completely frantic. At precisely 8:30, the doorbell rang sharply. Jackson stood outside, still in yesterday's rumpled clothes. His face was a storm of confusion, anger, and panic. "What the hell did you make me sign?" he demanded breathlessly. Stepping aside calmly, Claire gestured for him to enter. "Come inside, Jackson. Let's talk about it over coffee." I stepped aside, allowing Jackson to enter. When he saw Natalie sitting at the kitchen table, he faltered. Who's she? Natalie Foster, she introduced herself professionally. Senior paralegal at Parker and Associates. Have a seat. We have important matters to discuss. Jackson's face drained of color. Parker and Associates? Ethan Parker's firm? The very same, I said softly. Coffee? He ignored my offer, angrily pulling the signed papers from his briefcase and slamming them onto the table. These aren't the divorce papers Patrick prepared. You switched them. No, Jackson, I corrected calmly. Those are exactly the papers you brought last night. You just never bothered to read them. Too busy texting Sophia, I suppose. Natalie smoothly opened her laptop. Mr. Harris, shall we review exactly what you've signed? She asked evenly. First, there's the transfer of all joint assets into Mrs. Harris's name, fully authorized by your signature on pages 3, 7, and 12. Additionally, you've signed a sworn statement detailing your extramarital affair with Sophia Miller, including dates, locations, and financial records documenting purchases made using marital funds. Jackson collapsed into a chair, the blood draining from his face. This isn't legal. I'll fight. With Patrick's help? I asked innocently. Your unlicensed golfing buddy, who's currently under investigation for practicing law illegally? That should go well. You set me up, Jackson whispered, glaring at me. No, I corrected firmly. You set yourself up. I simply ensured everything was carefully documented. Natalie produced another thick folder. We also have evidence of your attempt to defraud Mrs. Harris by presenting falsified legal documents in the middle of the night, which, by the way, was fully captured by the home security cameras installed 3 months ago. Jackson's head snapped up. What cameras? I gestured toward a discreet lens in the corner above the kitchen cabinets. Amazing what you don't notice when you think you're untouchable. Why are you doing this? He demanded, voice cracking. Revenge? For protection, I corrected firmly. Jackson, I gave you 12 years of my life. I supported your dreams, maintained our home, and believed in our shared future. And you repaid that by trying to discard me with nothing. Natalie slid another set of papers across the table. These are the actual divorce papers, properly prepared by Parker and Associates. You'll find the terms quite different from what you imagined. Jackson stared blankly at the documents, hands trembling visibly. I don't have to sign these. True, I acknowledged calmly, but then we'll proceed immediately with charges of attempted fraud, and your friend Patrick will face serious legal repercussions as your accomplice. Your choice. You can't prove, he began. Actually, Natalie interrupted smoothly, rotating her laptop screen toward him, we can prove everything. Surveillance footage, text messages between you and Patrick planning this deception, and the illegally drafted documents. Would you like to see more? Jackson sank lower in the chair, the full weight of his predicament finally hitting him. If this gets out, I'll lose my job, he muttered weakly. You should have thought about that before attempting to ambush your wife at midnight with falsified legal papers, Natalie replied crisply. I stood silently, watching Jackson, my soon-to-be ex-husband, as the reality of his defeat settled heavily on his shoulders. The man who had smugly believed he had outsmarted me mere hours earlier now appeared small and helpless. You have 24 hours to review these documents with a licensed attorney, I told him firmly, standing straighter. After that, we move forward with fraud charges. And Jackson, I added quietly, next time you try to trick someone into signing something in the middle of the night, make sure they're not smarter than you. Jackson gathered the papers slowly with trembling hands and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he turned around hesitantly. Claire, Save it, I interrupted sharply. Your 24 hours begin now. As soon as he left, Natalie turned to me, a satisfied smile crossing her face. Well, that went even better than we planned. I sat down heavily at the table, finally letting out the breath I'd been holding for months. Holding, Claire sighed deeply. Natalie placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. You've done the right thing, Claire. Jackson would be an idiot not to sign. Claire picked up her phone, now silent after hours of constant buzzing. The last text from Jackson simply read, You've changed. No, Claire whispered softly. I've just stopped letting you believe I was less than you. Jackson signed the divorce papers, exactly 23 hours and 12 minutes after leaving the house. Ethan Parker called to deliver the news while Claire was grading papers after school in her classroom. He attempted to negotiate, Ethan said, amusement clear in his voice. But when I mentioned we had video footage of him coercing you into signing fraudulent documents in the middle of the night, he quickly became cooperative. Claire looked around her colorful classroom, her students' cheerful artwork lining the walls and math problems neatly displayed on the whiteboard. This supposedly dead-end teaching job had given her more fulfillment than Jackson could ever understand. What about Sophia? Claire asked, briefly thinking of the ambitious young executive who'd fallen for Jackson's charm and empty promises. She was surprised to discover she wasn't Jackson's first affair, Ethan replied dryly. Your documentation of his previous infidelities was exceptionally thorough. Sophia has already cleared her desk at the firm. That evening, Natalie arrived with a celebratory bottle of wine, helping Claire pack up the last of Jackson's belongings. Did you hear about Patrick? Natalie asked, carefully wrapping a framed photo. Jackson's golfing buddy and fake attorney? Claire asked, curious. No, what happened? The state bar is investigating him, Natalie revealed. Apparently you weren't the first person he tried to scam with fraudulent legal documents, but you were definitely the first to outsmart him. Claire sank into the couch, reflecting on how different things could have been if she'd never noticed the lipstick stain, if she'd never made those crucial phone calls, or if she'd remained the passive, accommodating wife Jackson expected her to be. You know what's ironic? Claire said, swirling the wine in her glass. Jackson always told me I was terrible with details. He claimed that's why I was stuck being just a teacher instead of someone successful like him, but in the end, it was my attention to detail that brought him down. A week later, Claire received an unexpected email from Jackson's company. The board had carefully reviewed the extensive evidence of Jackson's misconduct, including his attempt to fraudulently coerce his wife into signing away her rights at midnight, and concluded that his position as chief financial officer was no longer viable. Your detailed records have been invaluable, the HR director wrote. We're now conducting a comprehensive audit of Jackson's entire department. Claire forwarded the email to Ethan Parker, who responded simply, sometimes, the best revenge is simply being thorough. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. Claire kept their suburban Austin home, half of Jackson's pension, and most importantly, her dignity. Jackson moved to a smaller city, taking a position at a lesser-known firm, his once impeccable reputation now in shambles, due to the revelations about his attempted fraud. Sophia reached out once, attempting to explain her side of things. Claire replied succinctly, the security footage showed your side clearly enough. Sophia never contacted her again. Exactly 1 year after that tense night in the kitchen, Claire sat at the very same table where Jackson had tried to strip her of everything. Now the home was truly hers, redecorated fully to reflect her own tastes, rather than Jackson's overly sophisticated preferences. Natalie arrived for dinner that evening, bearing a small gift-wrapped box. Happy Independence Day, Natalie said, smiling warmly. Claire carefully unwrapped the package, revealing a framed photo, the security camera still of Jackson confidently pushing fraudulent papers across the table, unaware that he was documenting his own downfall. A reminder, Natalie explained with a grin, that sometimes the best offense is letting your opponent believe they're winning. Claire smiled, hanging the photo prominently in her newly furnished home office, a testament to her quiet strength, and a permanent reminder that the woman Jackson underestimated had been the architect of his unraveling. Claire smiled gently at the framed photo hanging in her office, positioned carefully next to her teaching certificates and a handwritten note from a former student. Thank you for believing in me. It reminded her daily that strength often appeared differently than people expected. Last week, Claire ran into Jackson's mother at their local grocery store in suburban Austin. The older woman started to turn away awkwardly, but Claire called out warmly, "Hi, Margaret." Margaret paused, replying stiffly, "I heard you received a promotion. Head of elementary curriculum now?" "Yes," Claire responded warmly. "It seems paying attention to details is valued in education after all." Margaret hesitated, her expression softening slightly. Jackson is... He's not doing well. Sophia left him for someone more successful. That's unfortunate, Claire replied sincerely. I hope he learned something from it. As Claire walked away, she overheard Margaret softly admit, We all underestimated you. That evening, Claire received a text from an unfamiliar number. It was Jackson. I'm sorry, the message began. I should have appreciated what I had. Claire stared thoughtfully at his words, recalling the man who'd stormed arrogantly into their kitchen that night, confident he would leave her with nothing. Calmly, she typed her reply. Thank you for the apology, but you were wrong. I didn't end up with nothing. In the divorce, I got myself back. Then, Claire quietly blocked his number, poured herself a glass of wine and stepped onto her back porch. She settled into her favorite chair, watching the sunset fill the Texas sky with vibrant colors. She reflected peacefully that sometimes victory wasn't about fighting loudly or forcefully. Sometimes the greatest strength came from preparation, patience, and allowing karma to do its job. Jackson's biggest mistake had been underestimating Claire and overlooking the quiet power she'd held all along. If my story resonated with you, I invite you to stand with me, to let others know they're not alone when facing betrayal or adversity. Share your own experiences in the comments, tell me what part of my journey inspired you, or even offer advice you've learned through your own trials. Every word of support, encouragement, or wisdom strengthens us all. It's your voice that helps transform painful experiences into powerful lessons, proving that none of us have to face our toughest battles alone. I'd truly love to hear your thoughts. Did you see yourself in my struggles? Did you cheer silently when Jackson realized he had underestimated me? Or maybe you found comfort knowing someone else has faced betrayal yet emerged stronger and wiser. Your words of encouragement can inspire me, and many others reading this, to keep moving forward, reminding us all that reclaiming our lives is possible. Your feedback is a meaningful reminder that our strength often comes from a community of support, understanding, and shared courage. Lastly, if my story taught me anything, it's this. Pay attention, trust your instincts, and never let someone else's underestimation become your reality. If you've ever faced someone who tried to diminish your worth or define your limits, remember, your value is never determined by another person's inability to see it. Life rewards preparation, patience, and quiet resilience. Keep detailed notes, not just on others' actions, but on your own strengths. Stand firm, even when the world expects you to crumble. And always, always know your worth. Please, share how you'll apply this to your life, or leave advice for others struggling to find their voice and strength. Together, let's empower one another to live bravely, boldly, and authentically.